Welcome into the KSR Football Podcast presented by Revel XP. I'm Nick Roush, joined today by Adam Luckett and Max Duffy. Drew's busy playing golf, hard at work. That's the kind of work that I want to be paid for. But today we're getting paid here to talk about a wild 1-point loss, 13-12, a slobber knocker at Kroger Field between the number one team in the country and your University of Kentucky Wildcats. Hopefully this new setup sounds a little bit better. I know we've had some complaints podcast. Figuring this thing out, it's been an issue, but hopefully this is much better. It feels like Kentucky figured some stuff out Saturday, Max. It just so close, but so far away still.
A week's a long time in football. Talked about it on the pregame show. This is why you've got a breakfast bowl. Like, this is why you're allowed a mulligan once a season.
Yeah.
I know. Maybe the best teams, Georgia, Alabama, they really don't need that extra ball. They normally drive it down the middle, but sometimes we do spray it off the tee.
Yeah.
So to get a second chance to hit one down the middle was nice. You guys would be the same. There's obviously little points we're going to talk about, but super impressed with the effort, super impressed with, the attitude that we came out with and played with. When we're playing the number one team in the country, I know we lost and everyone will be like, there's no moral victories, etc. It's close to a moral victory. Losing by 1 point to the number one team, I think everyone would take that. And everyone last week was asking, what would it take to get the fan base back on board? Do we need a win? And everyone kind of laughed and was like, there's no way we're back on board till the Ole Miss or even the Vandy game. Well, I'm back on board.
All the way back. He's all the way back on board. Your score prediction was a little off.
But I'm liking that vibe. So I'm going to go Ohio this week beats us like 56-0. Then Ole Miss beats us 70-0. I'm just going to keep picking blowouts. So then we play like that. I would happily let the whole Kentucky football team just hear my score each week if that's what has to fire them up.
I like the thought, of having Max's score predictions just be their bulletin board material. This stupid punter, he don't believe in you.
They just got Max Duffy on the big board in there. Score predictions.
But we're going to get into the punt because that's all anybody wants to talk about. We're going to get into all of the little nitty-gritty things. But you are correct, Max, in that I didn't know what it would look like. I didn't know if Kentucky would get off the mat at all because it's really hard to do that against the number one team in the country, and particularly for Brock Vandagriff because he got his ass kicked last week. Things snowballed in a hurry. I didn't know mentally where he would be. I didn't know if this offensive line could be anything but a sieve. We weren't sure how much of it was the offensive line being bad versus South Carolina's defensive line being really good. Turns out South Carolina pretty good at rushing the passer. We saw that in the LSU game. We get some of the best offensive tackles in the SEC. In that first drive, they're pinned back on the one, they get a quarterback sneak out, and then Brock's dropping back to pass, and you've got a free blitzer, and he ducks and runs, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, this team is ready to play. And I like Soup said, we're 10 years past moral victories, but the fact that they got up off the mat shows me that, all right, we're not just going to wad up this season and throw it in the trash. This is a real football team with a really good defense and an offense that showed us that, hey, they might have something here.
Yeah, leaving week 2 felt like 3-9 was on the table potentially if things started to snowball with the schedule. Leaving week 3, it feels like this is a team that can still meet preseason expectations. Like, they have a chance now. They have, to me, I talked about last week, Nick, what is even their offensive identity? What are they going to do to even move the ball and score points? I think we're seeing that now. They can run the damn football. I'm going to say this 100 times. If you run for 200 non-sack yards on 5 yards per rush against that Georgia front, that's big-time stuff. You're going to be able to run the ball on every defense you face, in my opinion, for the rest of the season. And that changes the calculus, I think, offensively of what they can do. I know a lot of the talking points right now are going to be about the passing game and the protection, and the protection is a major problem. But if you can run the football like that, you're going to get these receivers open, and you're going to have chances to connect on deep passes. And so I feel good about the direction of the offense. And, to me, just take the punt decision out. Just take it out, whatever you think about it. That was a well-prepared and a well-coached football team on Saturday night in all 3 phases. They were ready for Georgia in all 3 phases of the game. Bush Hamdan cooked up a great plan that gave them chances to succeed, 4 scoring opportunities in 10 possessions against a defense that simply you cannot move the football on. Clemson, that got stuffed in a locker, And they scored 66 points on App State. And that Clemson team is probably going to average 40 points a game in the ACC this year. And so there's a lot of good to take from that. I think it's hard to just say, hey, the South Carolina game's gone. Don't throw it out the window. Because if you just look at the Southern Miss and Georgia games, I think you can see the offense, and I think the defense, like, you get really excited about. But it's hard to just throw the South Carolina game away at this point. We got to go play some games and see what this team can do. But again, there was worries, I think, about them losing the locker room last week. That was the bigger worry. Like, is this just a total tailspin situation? And they were able to rally the troops, and they looked locked in and ready to go. Now we need to see them stack performances like that.
And I thought all my dreams had come true for an offense when we QB sneaked the first play of the game. I would love to see an offensive coordinator one day say, we're bigger than you and we fight harder than you. I'm going to QB sneak every single time.
Oh.
I was like, that was the great, honestly, the mentality to start that way was probably, I know we had to, I get it, we're back up. It wasn't just a call that we did. But it was the greatest mentality to start. Like, QB sneak, us v you, who can get some yards? What we get, 4 yards on the first play with a QB sneak? Now, I would have loved to do it again. That would have set the tone. But honestly, great way to start. And honestly, set the tone. Then he scrambles and...
Even before that, right, I believe it was Dominic Lovett on punt coverage. He knocks Nasir Addison down.
Yep.
And, like, that was a sign to me that, hey, F you. This is a fist fight. You're not going to come in here and bully us. Nasir Addison gets up and gets in his face right away. And then they kind of have back and forth, and then Cam Dooley gets into it, and then they took it to the sideline, and they had a little party over it. From that even though you got back, that backed you up on the one, but that was kind of a tone setting.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, screw you and the horse you rode in on. You're here. You're coming to our house, and we're going to fight you.
Wearing the coal mine of gray too, like just the honesty of the coal mine of gray.
So I love that, and then you do that, like Max says. You come out the next play, you run a sneak, and what happened on the sneak last week? Got totally stuffed. You come out and run the sneak, and that was just kind of Nick. It felt like a Mark Stoops coach team, and I think these last couple of years they haven't really felt like Mark Stoops teams because they haven't really been able to run the ball. They've got that back now, and I'm excited to see what can they build from this, because they're 1-2 and they're in a hole, and it's looking like 7-5 might be the ceiling and 6-6 might be the most likely record. But what can they do now that they have established this identity and they have a defense that you can talk yourself into easily them being kind of a top 15 defense in college football if they keep growing?
And the defense was incredible on Saturday. There's no other way to put it. They were awesome. Georgia only had 3 first downs in the first half. Carson Beck had completed like 50% of his passes. I don't have the final numbers in front of me right now, but like he's like a couple percentage points away from being the most efficient passer in the history of the SEC. That's a very good offense that you contained, you bottled up, and you really only gave up one big drive against them. It felt like they were starting to get momentum, but you got stops when you needed to. You got off the field. I do want to, this is where we just start to ask, like, what's it going to take for this Kentucky team to get a break? My God, 2 weeks in a row, 6 balls on the ground. Kentucky gets none of them. You've got a Jordan Lovett pick that just goes right through his hands, and then the other Lovett, Dominic Lovett, dives under it, and the pick six.
Pick six shouldn't have even mattered because that Jordan Lovett should have had a pick.
Yeah.
Same possession.
Can we get the ball to bounce our way? Can Georgia shank a punt and then it not bounce 20 yards in their favor? Every single thing in this game, Max, where it was like a coin toss on which way it should go, they got them all. Even the face mask. We get called for a face mask when our guys' helmets getting ripped off.
The face mask was, I don't know how you missed that. Like, if you're looking for a sign that maybe someone got a face mask, it's probably when their helmet goes flying across the field.
He had to sit out. He had to go to the sideline because his helmet got ripped off.
How they missed that, I have no idea. And then you touched on it. Honestly, no one will really talk about this, but the 20-yard bounce for their punt leading into our drive where we ended up deciding to punt ourselves was probably the biggest stroke of luck in the whole game for them. If that takes a backward bounce, if that goes sideways, if whatever happens besides 20 extra yards, we're in field goal range with how we drove. We win the game. Like, that was literally.
Kentucky needed those 20 extra yards.
We
and they're
needed
there.
those. We weren't moving the ball great. We got a stop, which is exactly what we needed, and we just needed a bit of luck. And, like, all the time in sports, you talk about it. People win national championships, world championships, whatever it is. You need that little bit of luck to go your way that you can't control, and that was one of those moments.
Absolutely.
Because when you look at the...
Just don't talk to me about officiating this week.
Old Bengals fan over here. He had a rough weekend with 1-point losses and questionable officiating. But like, if you look at that box score bucket, it is pretty much dominated by Kentucky.
Yeah.
But the one big exception is explosive plays. And the reason why you couldn't get any explosives is even when Georgia messed up, they still made tackles 15 yards down the field. I think the only time that Kentucky had an open receiver that Berrien catches in the flat, he gets about 15 yards. He can't make a guy miss. And like that was... post, but they didn't have time because they whiff on a block. The second and 8 play that's gotten dissected because people wanted to run the damn ball. That plays there too if he has the time to be able to get it off and the Georgia guy doesn't get his passing lanes in there. There was so many just like it's this close and it just never went Kentucky's way and it sucks. It sucks. But that's what happens when you play a team as good as Georgia.
To be fair, they came out after halftime and they went unlucky fumble, which moved them back. Or maybe tackle for loss, field goal. Then they drive again, touchdown. Then they're driving again. They've got a 2nd and 2. Carson Beck has the handling issue. We get a little bit of luck. They were starting to move the ball on us in that second half.
Third quarter, they got rolling on.
That was the difference. I know we lose by a point, and there's things that go either way. When the game was up for grabs, they were able to move the ball. We weren't able to move the ball efficiently. And I think we even had a few things go our way. Like I said, the Carson Beck handling issue saved us big time because they're probably going to drive and maybe punch in another one. And the game looks a little different. We got a little bit of luck there.
But what if the ball just bounces to our guy instead of right back to the running back?
Also, if they throw the flag on the 1st and 10 when J.J. Weaver beats the right tackle.
And he gets tackled. How's that not a hold? And then the targeting, we can go back to we'll start with this on our decision making because a lot of gripes are Mark Stoops is too conservative. And that's it's going to follow him throughout his entire time at Kentucky. He's never going to beat that. And it worked pretty well for this game. But, all right, Max, I want to ask you. Got the ball in the 15. Demi Sumo Karmbe gets his head smashed in. They don't call targeting, so you don't get the ball at the 2, which if you got the ball at the 2 with 9 seconds left, you got a lot more options to try to get to the end zone. But so you got the ball at the 15, no timeouts, 9 seconds left. You taking the points and going up 6-3 at half, or are you taking a shot at the end zone?
I'm taking the points at that stage. They didn't look like they could move the ball. Obviously, they came out after halftime and showed they could. At that point, they couldn't move the ball. Take the win, take your points. Don't take a risk of giving them the momentum just before half and maybe throwing a pick, forcing something. We didn't really look like we could move the ball. Again, I know everyone will be like, oh, he's too conservative. Well, last week we were calling for him to just run the ball. You can't just argue both ways whenever things it's one or the other and you've got to be consistent with it. To me, that's the way we need to play football because that's the way he coaches the best and we seem to get the best results. Made a bad mistake, go out there, try and win it in the second half.
The game. A lot of this, Max, I think it depends on the game flow and how the game's working. They were in a back alley brawl. Mm-hmm. And you've got to, in these games where you're moving the football, it would have been demoralizing, I think, at that point if you try to drop back and throw, Nick, and you take a sack.
Yep.
You don't get any points, which was highly likely with how that pass rush was cooking throughout the entire game.
I think he was pressured, 60% of the time?
It was right at, I think it ended up being 55 to 58%, something like that. So over half his pass drops, he was getting moved off the spots. That's really what that means. Like they could not drop back to pass.
Because you think like, hey, just go out there and throw a fade to Dane, which is what they were going to do, and then Kirby burns the timeout. And he's like, no, we got to get in too high. We're not letting them throw a fade to the end zone.
Yes.
And Stoops is like, all right, well, I'll take the points and go on.
Yeah.
I didn't really have beef with that. But the part that surprised me, Max, to your point, is they came out in that second half and really did move the ball well. And then Demi gets them into a 4th and 2 on the 22, I want to say. And then you're like, oh, do you go for it here, or do you take the points again? Do you keep doing this thing again?
That's the one I think you could discuss.
Yeah.
Right, like where it's like, I think you might have a shot here. There's only 2 yards. You might be able to get it there. I could hear many more arguments about that decision than the one right before half.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough because if you're going to go in with a mentality of a way that you think you're going to win the game, you've got to stick to it. And I know that there's there's a time to change it up and all that. I get that. But he had gone in going, if we can just play defense, kick field goals, keep ourselves in the game to the last play, which we did, then we're going to have a chance to win, which everyone would have taken 100 times out of 100 leading up to the game.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like kick the field goal, stay in it, hope for a bit of luck. And honestly, that moment that came up with the luck was when they punted the ball and they get the extra 20 yards. Like that bounce is the bounce that we need, where we just keep ourselves in it and we get a huge chance to go and win the game there.
Yeah, here's my argument on that, Nick. Like, getting 3 points at the end of half kind of allows you to win the middle 8 when you get the double dip possession.
Right.
So you're up 6-3, you drive it right down on them. And in this game, how it was playing out, the schedule script read off what's going to happen the rest of the season. So stay tuned.
Yeah, to your point though, that was your opportunity to maybe build up the lead that might be insurmountable. Because that was the thing, is Kentucky was winning this game, but they never had enough cushion to make it a lead that was too much for Georgia to overcome. Max, you brought up the point that I think is going to get us to the biggest question of the day that everybody wants to talk about. But first, I got to tell you about Club Blue NIL. You didn't have any Club Blue NIL. I bet you would have loved some Club Blue NIL back in the day.
I would have loved it. I would have absolutely loved it.
You would have done a great job, and you can do a great job supporting your University of Kentucky student athletes with Club Blue. It's the official collective partner of UK. It's founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at Kentucky, where 100% of what you donate goes directly to student athletes. And what's cool too, you get a lot of perks if you go to the football games. Every home game, you can meet some athletes. Travis Perry was out there Saturday by the catwalk. You can come hang out with the guy who broke King Kelly Cutlin's scoring record and is going to be lining up for Mark Pope this season. Club Blue NIL. Subscribe today at clubbluenil.com, and you get to pick which sport you want to support. Sign up, choose your support the club, support Club Blue. And one thing Mark Stoops isn't getting a lot of support for is his decision to punt. And that's the crux of what you said a minute ago, was like, you want Stoops to be more aggressive until he is aggressive, and then it's like, no, we should have just ran the damn ball. And it's that 2nd and 8 where you're like, well, why didn't they just keep running it, and then you get it down there? And like, that's the kind of stuff that is keeping Stoops up at night.
I mean, the Sunday morning play caller is always the easiest person to be, right?
Yeah, of course.
And to me, I said at the time that I thought he should have punted, because I was like, oh, this is just how we play. Like, it is what it is, and you're going to like it sometimes, you're not going to like it. But looking back and, watching again, I mean, I think it's pretty clear we should go and just take a risk because, to me, it's like I get it, we only need a field goal. We don't need a touchdown. So that goes into the decision making. But they had moved the ball so well. They'd moved the ball so well in the second half. We were starting to, get gashed a little bit. We had a little bit of luck that stopped it. To me, it's like, I think number one team in the country, why not just go and just run something? Whether we get the 8 yards or not, who knows? But at least we gave it a shot.
I do wonder if the warning hurt them there because Georgia's kind of got a free play where they can pass the ball.
Yeah. Well, and if you want to do the numbers of what the analytics say, Stoops was essentially saying, I'm basing this decision off of what has happened the rest of the game, which the rest of the game, Georgia got stopped on 66% of its possessions with 1 first down or less.
Yeah.
66% of its possessions, they were either 1 first down or 3 and out. Meanwhile, Kentucky was 3 of 8 on passes thrown 10 or more yards down the field. And that doesn't include the other 9 dropbacks where Brock had to scramble or he got sacked. So those numbers are probably a little bit lower than even that. So for me, it was they probably weren't going to get it. But at that, the reason why I kind of you're in this weird gray area. If there's 4 minutes left, there's enough time for you to get a stop and go move the ball. If there's only 2 minutes left, you're definitely going for it. But they're in this weird little gray area. I see Stoops' side of it, but there's also you're going to have to stop them anyway, Luckett. So if you don't get it, you got to stop them in 1 first down or less anyway.
Real time, I thought it was 50-50 decision. Real time. I think thinking about it more, even if you get the 3 and out, you're still going to have to drop back pass in predictable pass situation against that defense, and you're dealing with that Georgia pass rush, which you had no answers for. So it was going to be hard to get in the field goal range.
Yeah. And I know this is special teams talk, but one of the most disappointing things was we go out there to punt and we get flagged. And honestly, that's a massive play. Our punter is not punting well right now.
Yeah.
He cannot kick the ball very far. We needed every single yard to get him close to the end zone as we could. We pinned that inside the 5. Maybe we're great call to pin him. And we stop them and all this. But then, they get it on the 17, or I can't remember exactly.
15.
15. Yeah. It just gives them that little bit of buffer that they probably needed just to be able to breathe a little easier.
They feel more comfortable to throw it on 2nd down and gain 20 yards.
Absolutely.
The funniest alternate reality of all of this, and it was this close to working. I mean, De'Aaron Jackson was right there. He trusted the defense more to get a stop than his offense, and I can't say I blame him. And they forced the fumble. The ball was on the ground, and De'Aaron Jackson and Oscar Delp are at basically the same place. It's just D-Jack is already moving on to the next play, and Delp dives on it, right?
The receiver came over from a couple yards away. Arian Smith is the one who recovered.
Oh, it was Smith who recovered, not Delp who dropped it.
But if Jackson sees it, he probably jumps on it. And then, now again, it was going to be difficult because you had to drop back pass. To me, this is why I've kind of changed my tune a little bit on this since the rapid reaction, just thinking about it more. Because you're going to have to create an explosive and a clear drop back situation regardless, even if you get the stop. And I think you just got to take your swing there on 4th and 8.
Yeah.
So that was
just 1 time instead of 5 times.
Because Stoops' I think his argument was basically we couldn't protect him, and so we wanted to reset and get the ball back. But my argument would be, you're going to have to protect regardless to even have a chance to do this, I guess. So just run your best, whatever you think your best play is right there. And you just ran 2 good plays, 2 plays before.
Right.
You had guys open. Just run what you think is one of your better plays at that moment, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Am I allowed to pivot for a second?
I'm just going to read this quote that he had today because there's a long clip where he said, report the whole damn thing. So we reported the whole damn thing on Kentucky Sports Radio. Long quote, video is about 90 seconds long. But the crux of it was, we got to that point by playing field position and playing defense. We had a chance to win that game just the way we played it. We came up a play or 2 short. I stand by that. There you had it. We didn't even ask him about it today, too, either, Max. We asked about the offense, and he just went on a tangent.
He was fired up.
Because he did want to know.
He cares now.
Oh, yeah. He wanted to show, too, that he's you forget that we got strip sacked twice around the same spot on the field. And that was really what he was terrified, is that they'd pin their ears back.
They just could not protect.
Yeah.
And, again, like we talked about after the game, I think just the process of the situation is, I think, something they should want back. It's 2nd and 8. Bush, whatever you do on these next 2 plays, just make sure we get a 4th and 5 or a 4th and 4.
Yeah.
Let's set this, because if we get this and then we go down and run it 2 more times, we're in range to kick for the win, and we're going to have them in a situation where they're having to burn timeouts.
Yeah, right.
So set up the game. I don't think they did it. I think they'll probably want back the setup to get to that point. I don't mind passing it on 2nd or even 3rd down, but one of those I think you needed to gain yards. And I guess their argument would be the 2nd down call. You run the tight end up the seam, you have a check down. If you hit the check down, it's positive yards. You're in 3rd and medium, maybe 3rd and short.
Yeah.
Instead, you're stuck in 3rd and 8 and obvious pass.
And Bush's thinking would have been, we're in predictable run probably right now.
Yeah.
And we'll go for it on 4th down. So let's.
He got aggressive.
Yeah.
This whole talk to me is all about Stoops not being aggressive enough in this situation. But they were aggressive on 2nd down. That was an aggressive call considering the situation.
And he stayed in a run. Yeah, he stayed in a run heavy package, and you know what? They just got their hands up. Right, like they got their hands up, and batted it down, and 1 or 2 plays away. Those were the 1 or 2 plays. Pivot? We pivot?
Yeah, I've been saying this for a little bit.
Okay.
And I can't believe like this isn't a wider spread understanding or
thought
want for us.
Okay.
Everyone that says that we need to go get John Summerall, if on when Stoops moves on, right? Is fine, and I like John a lot. He's a very, very good coach, don't get me wrong. But we have a defensive coordinator that is sitting there, that is playing his role right now, not trying to be the loud, outspoken, what we would see as the head coach demeanor. He plays his role perfectly. He is the DC. He is not supposed to be there to make a bunch of noise. He's just showing it with his actions. Our defense against the number 1 team in the country with an explosive offense did the job. He gets it done week after week. He had a bit of a down week against South Carolina with a couple blown coverages, even though they had the ball 655 times. Like, why would the talk not be Brad White just as much as John Summerall?
You want to take that, Nick?
Well, for one, I know there's some friends out there watching who think Brad White is not good at his job, and I don't think those people watched Kentucky play defense before Brad White became the defensive coordinator. Yes, Matt House had a good defense. I spent my years as a youth coming up to Commonwealth Stadium and watching Jeff Snedeker concuss himself on people, and that was our best form of defense. There was missed tackles. It was really bad. But really, the only reason why, to your point, is because I think Summerall has some of that vocality. He's got a little bit of juice. And he's a good recruiter. He's done well elsewhere. And Brad isn't this. You don't think Brad's just playing his role as defensive coordinator right now? If he had to be the head man, he could be. It's like if you're the boss of a company, then you're going to act different than if you're being told by the boss of the company what to do. Well, and I think some of it, though, is people who are still mad today. And I don't think there's a lot of them, to be fair. Like, all of the people who were like, I'm not going to that Georgia game, I'm selling my tickets. There was a lot of people at Kroger Field who were there to support. What people say online when they're pissed off is not indicative of the entire fan base. But there's just a portion of the fan base that's going to stay mad at Stoops because of the conservative nature, because he's a defensive guy. And Brad is...
He changed that up on Saturday night. We came off the bus for a while.
Oh yeah, they got after Carson Beck's ass. They were all over him, and that's the part that's like the defense getting any sort of flack at all. I got it from a blown coverage standpoint against South Carolina, but they put balls on the ground. They played them tough, and you cleaned up a lot of your issues. And Zion Childress out there, where it's like an all-SEC performer, 5 tackles in the first 7 snaps of the game. Like, that defense got after it.
A couple things on that. Kirby Smart even said it in the first quarter. Like, Molly McGrath was like, what's going on with offense? And he was like, what's going on? The front's kicking our ass. That's no rocket science. So the front, we talked about this all offseason. The front is a problem. Like, the front gives them a chance to have a really good defense because it is an issue. They've got a first-round pick up there, and they've got a bunch of seniors who have played a ton of football in this league. And like Trayvon Ripka was awesome in that football game. J.J. Weaver was very good in that football game. The front is an issue. And then, like Nick, this is why the dropped interception was a really frustrating play. The pass rush got to Carson Beck.
Yep.
Go and watch that play. He moves right. He takes his eyes off the coverage. He gets settled, but he's getting pressured, and he makes a bad mistake. He throws it over the middle And Lovett is squatting on this route and just jumps in front of it. And it really should have been a pick. And that was one of the bigger plays, I think, in the game. You missed that big opportunity. And then if you get that and you get any return at all, you have a red zone possession probably, at least, and you might score there. And 10-3 looks a lot different than 6-0. And then what you had was a 3-0 game, and then they punted, and then you turn it over, I think, or you get I think they get a 6-3 lead, and then they
6-3 lead.
Am I off on my Brad White thinking though?
No, I mean, he will get an interview when that time comes. That would be my answer to that.
When that time comes, when that is, I don't know. And it's just so funny, Max, because just the difference a week can make.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of it took me forever to even collect some rational thoughts on just how to process the South Carolina game, because it was a stinker, unlike many stinkers we've seen before. But you're only one Saturday away from getting humbled. And that almost applied to Georgia.
It happens. It's SEC football. These teams are good. If you're off by a little bit, you're going to get shown that you got to be on your game every single week. We looked at South Carolina against Old Dominion and were laughing at them. Then they came out and beat us bad. beat us. Well, I was going to say a word there. I shouldn't. They beat us real bad. Then they've got game day the next week. And then they're up against LSU. Now they end up losing, but things change so quickly for them. It's the same for us. We dominated Southern Miss. 31-0. We come into this game against South Carolina and we're like, we'll beat this team. We get in college game day against Georgia, get embarrassed, and then things turn around again. And we almost beat the number one team in the country. A week is a long, long time.
Yeah, here's the thing. You could argue Kentucky, even in the Southern Miss game, you could argue they look like a top 15 to 20 team. Against Georgia, you can argue, hey, they look like a legitimate top 15 team. Against South Carolina, they look like one of the worst power guys in college football. And so, who are you? Usually the answer is somewhere in the middle.
Yep. So, top 25, 30?
Are you more towards the high end or are you more towards the low end? That's the question. That's why you have to look at that South Carolina in a certain prism. Honestly, do you think they're that bad?
No.
That's the question, and that's why I say you kind of have to, it's hard, but you kind of have to forget the South Carolina game because it was so bad. And it snowballed on them in such a big way where I think, and then you see the Georgia and Southern Miss. Now, we're going to get more data points here moving forward. And I always say you kind of need 4 games to figure out who a college football team is. Because we don't know. There's no preseason.
Well, this is the first quarter of the season, and if you looked at the first quarter of that South Carolina LSU game, you might have thought South Carolina was the best team in the country because they just steamrolled Kentucky. They got Beamer blocking punts, and Sellers is running for 75-yard touchdowns. They looked like a force, but
and then
this is the first quarter.
To learn, hey, do not let South Carolina's pass rush change the game.
Yep.
Run the football at them. LSU said, hey, they found a freshman tailback, and they started running it and finding that balance you want, and that's when they started consistently moving the ball. We saw Kentucky, when they were able to move the ball against South Carolina, it was the run game. And I think for Kentucky moving forward, knowing their issues in protection, and there are some big ones, but playing ahead of the chains with the run game and with the play action pass and staying out of true dropbacks is the recipe for them moving forward. To me, the biggest thing to come out of the Georgia game is not that they played them close. It's not that, a moral victory, this or that. It's that they have an offensive identity. And I think it's pretty...
Run the damn ball. Run the damn ball.
It's that, and then they're going to get guys open deep down the field when they're not playing Georgia. They're going to run the ball. They're going to get an extra safety in the box, and they're going to have chances to hit Dan Key, hit Barry Brown, and Jamori Macklin on vertical concepts. And can you connect on those consistently enough? And that's how this offense is going to move the ball and score points.
And the thing, too, that you can't see on your televisions, but you can see up in the press box or in the stands, Georgia, very sticky down the field. Eliminating explosive plays, that is the emphasis of Kirby Smart's defense, and he's got a bunch of pros playing it. Finding guys. One of Brock's best throws was just a 12-yard out. I don't know how.
Opposite hash.
Yeah.
Big boy throw.
I don't know how the hell he got that in there. But to complete those passes, he had to make NFL-level throws every single time just to complete one pass. Because later on down the game, you would talk about, inches and missed opportunities. Fred Farrier had one where there was nothing but green grass in front of him, and then the white guy for him just comes diving across and swats the ball down to the ground. The Georgia defense, they're pretty good, Max.
They're pretty handy. We got a pretty handy kicker, too. That was something that definitely. We already knew that, but I mean, he kicked a Kentucky football record.
I did not think he had that in him. I'm not gonna lie. I thought no way he's making this.
55-yarder. Can I just say too, Max? I love interviewing kickers after games.
Man, it's got to be so boring, right?
Oh, because they're like, so you made that kick, and he's like, yeah, that's what I do. I make kicks.
Yeah. Well, what did you want me to do? Like throw the ball?
Yeah, like McGinnis would do the same thing, and McGinnis, he's a pretty candid guy. I think Rayner is too. McGinnis would be kind of fun in the middle of the week, but after games, he's like, yeah, I just went out there and I kicked it.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I do.
As funny as that sounds, that's almost as simple as you have to keep it in your mind. So you've got nothing else going on. There needs to be a level of uneducation in your brain if you're a punter or a kicker, because you can't afford to be thinking about too many things. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, that's what you told me to do. I went out there and kicked it. What did you expect me to do?
Oh, I was wondering too if they were going to have to bring out the Montana kid for the 55-yarder.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking at the very end of the game was like, is there a sneaky chance this dude could bang it from like 61? Or like, seriously, because he's been making them in practice.
And then do you throw in, like Rayner's been so good, but like, do you throw in the freshman, like when Rayner's been kicking it that well? Like,
why not? I mean, they're giving us a chance.
I mean,
if we're going to play this style of game though, and this is going to be the last time I swear that I'll ever talk about it, because I'm sure everyone's over it. But if we're going to play this style, and this is our style, defense, field position, run the ball, back to how we used to do it.
Yes.
Can we please get the punter that can kick it more than 38 yards? Seriously, that's going to be massive for us.
Yeah. I mean, average starting field position. You lost a battle the week, but part of the reason you lost it was because of the fumble.
Right.
They started one drive at the Kentucky 26 or whatever.
In Georgia's punter.
But Max brings up a good point. Like,
I mean, 2019 worked because this guy could flip the field. Like, let's be real. Like when it got stopped, like we could flip the field.
Was such a weapon in this game. Because they could have a 3-and-out and be punting from their own 22, and Kentucky would start at their own 25.
Yeah.
Just because he can bomb it 50-something yards. I mean, it was such a weapon that Kentucky really couldn't gain field position, even though they were getting some 3-and-outs and some stops inside the Georgia 30, because he could just flip it, and Kentucky could not do that necessarily with Wilson Berry.
That last punt should be an automatic inside the 10.
Yeah.
Even with the 5-yard, that should be an automatic inside the 10. These days, that is just a 99 times out of 100 that gets fair caught on the 8 or the 7.
Yeah.
They caught it on the 17 or 15 or it's a big difference.
Yeah. No, you're.
Sorry,
it just changes your play calling calculus there.
Yeah, especially for Bobo, right? Like, how much are you going to trust back when they're backed up and you just got to eat some handoffs with Etienne? Which, gosh, that rushing total, we almost got there.
Should have got. I didn't see him getting 17 carries in that game.
And then he ended up he got leaky on like 2 at the end.
Yeah.
That got him there. That was annoying. But what was annoying, it was a fun atmosphere pregame. It was great being out at the Revel XP tent out on the Cats Corner. They got a great setup there near Kentucky Proud Park. They've got a few different spots all around campus. So if you don't have a parking pass, you don't have a tailgate, I know it can be pricey for the full season, but you want to do it big for one big tailgate. Maybe there's a Keeneland one that's coming up with Auburn. You want to do it big with Revel XP, because they'll hook you up. They take care of all of it for you. They get you the spot, they get you the tent, they get you the chairs. You don't have to worry about lugging all that crap around, setting it up, putting it down. Just bring some food, bring some drinks, have yourself a time with Revel XP. Go to revelxp.com. They've been presenting sponsors of the KSR Football Podcast. We really appreciate them. And if you're going on the road too, that is, I know my family's done this before, but like if you're going to the Grove or you want to go down to Austin, making a road trip and having to haul your tailgate gear and then get a spot, like that's a real pain in the ass. Just trust it to Revel XP. They'll take good care of you. revelxp.com. Which makes me ask, we talked about this roller coaster that Kentucky's riding. We're a quarter of the way through the season. We're learning more about this team. What are we expecting this Saturday?
I expect us to, I can't say win now, because when I said win, we were terrible. When I say lose, but to answer the question honestly, you expect to go out and run the football really, really efficiently against this team, maybe build a little bit of a pass game against a lesser rush than we've had the last few weeks, and, win pretty comfortably. That would be the minimum of expectations, right?
Well, and for me, it's mostly just
win. Just want to win.
But it's like the mentality in this, because that was the part that was so jarring about the South Carolina game, is we we expected Kentucky to come out with this juice and they're going to just throw haymakers on the front. And you didn't really get that in the South Carolina game. And just because it's a MAC opponent and you're playing at 12:45, like, I don't want any of that to go away. Like, I want Kentucky to be full throttle. Like, we're just going to smash. We're going to out-physical you. Like, I want to see this, like, street dog, because Stoops talked about in the offseason, and this is what they're becoming. Like, we're just going to fight your ass every single Saturday.
Ohio's been a run-first offense this year. Starting quarterback threw 3 interceptions last week. So it's a team that's struggling to pass the ball a little bit. They want to run the football. That plays into the teeth of Kentucky's defense. And I think a lot of this game is, again, Kentucky's offense. You haven't scored a touchdown in 8 quarters. Like, I think it's pretty important, Nick, early in this football game for this offense to have some success.
Yeah.
Get some points on the board. And you want to see them continue to run the football, and you want to see them get this passing game going. You would like to see kind of a workman-like performance. But, again, with the way I think Kentucky's going to play this year, you know, it's not necessarily going to be the best style to just blow teams out of the water. So I'm fully expecting third quarter for this game to be
mentally
somewhat
prepare
close.
Yourself to be maybe up by 3 at halftime or a tie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
just an ugly 10-7 or 10-3 or something at halftime where we're like, why didn't we just play like we did against Georgia, where people don't really understand, like, the style that we're playing is probably not going to suit. You know, we're not going to be up 28-0 at halftime or anything.
A few injury things we wanted to get to, because Mincy and Hairston, they were game time decisions, and Stoops kind of saluted both of them for being able to go. He wasn't sure if either were, but they did get their starting right tackle and their big time cornerback, which, I mean, we aren't going to see Max Hairston lose many one-on-one reps, and he lost one on a fade route.
I mean, it was a great throw by Beck. And then I think even the touchdown drive, like, Beck made some big boy throws on that drive.
He's good.
And so
he's a ball player.
Without him, I'm not sure Georgia wins that game.
We don't think we'll have. Well, Jagger Burton, he seemed like.
Stoops sounded like he's probably going to be back this week.
Yeah,
That's a good chance.
So that's a good thing. Cortland Ford, we don't know where he is.
Jason Patterson, we're unsure yet, but Kentucky did say they're going to have some type of availability.
Yeah.
For it, even though this is not an SEC game.
Chip trained him though out, and I don't think that's the worst thing with these running backs. Like those guys.
Big surprise of the team, I think, so far has been the development of the running back room, where they're at.
I did not expect Will Cox to be able to come out there and do what he did. And he never got loose, Max. Like, you were just kind of waiting for him to really pop one. But you can see, like, kid's a ball player.
Good recruiting. Looks like we got all our recruits right on that department. And I'm looking forward to seeing how much, like, Chip adds to that.
Yeah.
You know, is he able to turn what we've been having 4-yard rushes, 5-yard, into breaking some loose? Like, is he going to be that much better than those guys and we go even better in the run game? Or is he just going to, you know, be similar and just add to it in bits and pieces?
And what Max points to, if you're going to play this complementary style of football that we think Kentucky's going to play, it's going to be very important to get explosives in the ground game, something they just haven't done yet. You really need to find that. To me, that's kind of what Wilcox. You saw some of the athletic.
The juice.
Like, to me, I see a lot of Pacheco in him, Isaiah Pacheco.
He's pretty good.
He's all knees and elbows when he runs. And even though he's small, he looks like a guy like, God, this guy's not fun to tackle. And he's got some of that athletic juice, I think. I think even Jason Patterson, we haven't really seen him get in the open field. He's got an extra gear, I think, in the open field that I don't know that Demi necessarily has. So those two freshmen, seeing what they can build off from them, and then can you get the receivers back involved in the run game with end arounds, jet sweeps, now that you're running it efficiently, and finding some more of these explosive plays in the ground, in the run game, because I think they're there because they're getting the first 5 yards. Now can you turn these 5-yard gains into 20-yard?
Can you pop
dash?
one?
Yeah.
Which, no explosive plays for Kentucky on Saturday. They were really efficient, but could not pop them. I'm going to see what's on the chat. What do you think's happening on the chat? We got any good questions on there? We're going to use the tight end, asked Nick Bowman. Never heard that question before.
Well, they tried to. Again, the biggest play of the game, the 2nd and 8, they tried to go to the tight end.
Yeah. And it wasn't there. This is a good point from Sixer. Brock needs to speed up his delivery. His windup is slow. And Max, that's, I think, if you're going to have any sort of critique of Brock, like I think mentally he's got the right stuff. He's a good athlete. He can make the good throws. But, like, so, especially with this protection, you just got to get it out of your hand quickly.
The first thing you do on Madden is go to your quarterback and change the attributes to quick release. So then he, when you're trying to hit that triangle or square down the field, he gets rid of it a little quicker. We need to go to his attributes and change that.
I'll graduate eventually asks, was our running game really that good, or did they miss a ton of tackles? Like, I didn't see him a lot of missed tackles like that. And that's where the explosives, like, they couldn't pop them because they were just wrapping up well.
I mean, this has been 3 games, and Demi's kind of making dudes miss. Like, he's creating missed tackles.
Especially when there's like, it feels like there's like a horde of people, and then it's like he pops out like in between, where it's not like there's dudes draped on him, but he finds the smallest holes and can get through them.
And the one where I finally thought we got loose, and probably against anyone except Georgia we do, when Brown caught that one, he made maybe one miss, and then he just looked like
you thought that might, like when he got the ball, you thought, oh, this could be it.
He finally had enough space, and then they got him down, and it was like, oh, just not our night.
Just, it wasn't. It was, so many things were so close, and I just, can we get some of Shane Beamer's luck? He's got plenty of it. Can he leave something behind Kroger Field for the rest of us? Come on. 3 minutes left with 4 timeouts, including the 2-minute timeout. I understand why Stoops punted, even though I disagreed with it at the time.
Yeah, I think, again, like, to me, it comes down to, even if you get the ball back, you're not going to have great field position. You're essentially 15 yards away from kicking a field goal. It's 4th and 8. Just run your best play. I think you needed to go for it there in hindsight. I get why he did it and how the game worked out, but you just weren't getting the ball. I mean, you were going to get the ball back, but it was going to be hard and predictable pass regardless.
One of our best plays of the night, QB sneak, could have gone back to that.
Oh,
big moment.
You know what, Max? I want to do let's just QB sneak it. Like that's something you can do on the EA Sports. Let's try in real life.
I've genuinely always thought, like, if you're bigger than an up front, I get that's why you run the ball. I understand that's part of it. But why not just QB sneak an entire drive for a touchdown? Could you imagine how demoralizing that would be?
It's almost like this guy had a receiver playing quarterback on his team.
Look across the field at their DC and go, what are you going to do about it? Because we're just going to QB sneak it every single time.
Which I need to bring up. I mentioned the video game. Our video game simulation on the KSR YouTube channel is just getting eerily similar. Where, like, you joked about it last week, Max, but like, it's kind of the Southern Miss game was close on the video game situation, but JQ Hardaway had a pick in the end zone. Barry and Brown had 2 touchdowns in there.
Miss,
Things are lining up.
We beat Ole Miss on the simulation.
We beat Ole Miss in the simulation. It's a close game against Ohio. Then you beat Ole Miss. Like
Georgia went down the wire in the simulation.
Exactly. So things are syncing up nicely. So I
didn't give a lot of credit to that simulation at the time. In fact, it made me very angry that we even put it up because it was really frustrating to see us almost get beaten by something.
I was getting pissed off on a Friday afternoon about a video game situation.
But now I'm kind of liking it. I would love to go beat Ole Miss.
So, what's the biggest concern from the first 3 weeks that you didn't anticipate going into the season, Max?
I mean, you just take away our ability to pass protect. I mean, that's really the one and only. I mean, there's always going to be little bits and pieces. That is the one and only concern going forward. Can we improve it at all? Is it going to mean we're just run heavy? Like, that is the only concern going forward for me, is how much can we improve that? And that might be the difference between, say, 7 or 8 wins or 5 and 6 wins.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, like, the centers and guards have issues, but it's both tackle spots.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of scheme around one, but it's both at this point in the season. So that's concerning. And then you're going to play a lot. Like, honestly, this is probably, like, this feels like the best collection of defensive fronts they've had on a schedule. Like, there's really not a break. I mean, even Louisville's
James Pierce, Ashton Gelati.
Louisville's got maybe a first-round pick, too, at the end of the season. Like, they're playing some, like, unbelievable fronts here. Now, they got a little break, I think. Well, the Ole Miss is coming, but other than that, with Vandy and Florida coming up, where you're not going to face that caliber. But it's concerning when you kind of look at, when Trey Moore at Texas is UTSA transfer, and Anthony Hill is kind of a hybrid linebacker edge, similar to Georgia's number 11, who could maybe give Kentucky all kinds of fits just as a situational rusher. So that is my concern. Like, you just can't, like, you almost can't even drop back to pass at all. You just can't protect. Mm-hmm. So how do you kind of deal with that? Can you improve at all? Something that I think they're going to have to figure out moving forward.
And I think we'll probably all agree that the best surprise on the positive side of things is that Kentucky can run the ball. And we did not expect that to be a strength. In fact, that was my biggest concern going into the season is can anybody besides Chip Trainum run the ball? Can they open holes for it? Is this going to have to be a pass-heavy team with the brand-new quarterback? And the answer is no. They can run the ball. If you can run the ball against Georgia, you can run the ball against anybody.
Absolutely. I mean, going into the season, it was going to be, well, we're going to be able to throw it, but can we run the ball efficiently? And I thought, with all those weapons on the outside, it was going to lead to us being able to run the ball a little easier. Mm-hmm. But now it's like that's our bread and butter.
Yeah,
that's our go-to.
The next step from these defenses is just saying, screw this. We're putting everyone in the box.
Mm-hmm.
We're overloading the box. And when they do that, can Kentucky play action pass, max protect, and can you get somebody open in a one-on-one? So that's when these receivers are going to show up in these next few games. That's because those are the opportunities that are going to present themselves. And like we talked about last week, Nick, what does this Kentucky offense do well? We think they can run the ball well. That was, again, confirmed on Saturday. And at least what we've seen from Brock Vandagriff so far, they can throw the ball deep when given opportunities. We didn't really see that much against Georgia. But those opportunities are going to present themselves, and if you can do that, that's a winning offensive
combination.
combo,
Well, 1-2 punch.
Throw it deep and run the ball. And when you put that safety in the box, we'll throw it over top of your head. And that's something they're just going to have to prove. It's something I think they can do, and I think that's going to long term. It's going to be the recipe for them this year. But they have to go improve it here moving forward because teams are going to say, "Hey, screw this." We're getting in the box. Like when they play Tennessee, they might put 11 in the box. And so you're going to have to prove eventually that, hey, if you do this, we're just going to throw it over top of your head. So then you're going to have to pick. Either you're going to get out of these loaded boxes and we're just going to cram it, or we'll throw it over top of you if this is what you want to do.
We do feel better though. Like we're not morally victorious. We're not doing that, Max.
Oh, I will. I'm happy to. I thought that was awesome. And just number one team in the country. Like, of course, that's a moral victory. Any moral victory was us being close. I said at the start of the season, our next step forward is not to go beat Georgia or Texas. To me, it was to make those games more competitive than what they've been the last few years. And everyone acting like we're the number one team in the country saying no moral victories. I'm taking the moral victory. I thought it was awesome. It makes me feel so much better about Kentucky football.
I feel better too after the first quarter of the season, despite the 1-2 start. One more loss than we expected here, but hopefully we can exhale. These guys can get healed up. Everybody was bleeding in their post-game interviews, like Brock, and they just blood all over these dudes. Like that was a physical, nasty game.
That's the other thing. The Georgia game has led to some big letdowns previously, but they've never had insert MAC opponent after one of these games. So how does Kentucky handle that? Do they bounce back better, or do they play? Typically, this is when they play one of their worst games of the season. But they didn't have any of the clunker we saw before. So it's a little different than seasons we've seen previously. So how do they kind of respond after that loss? And do they play well, or do we see another clunker? That's very interesting to me. That's kind of hard to predict. I don't really know how that's going to play out.
Well, we're going to find out soon enough. But our time here is done. We're going to go cool off somewhere. It's a little toasty in here.
It's very warm in here.
Hopefully it sounded better for you all, though, because we're here. We're willing to sweat it out for you, listeners.
Temperature is better for the internet.
I also think that the points that we made when the box went off and were some of the greatest points I've ever heard, and I was getting very excited about those points we were making.
Man.
No one got to hear.
We were making podcasting history.
Yeah.
It's a damn shame, but we do appreciate you following along and listen to us right here on the KSR YouTube channel. For Adam Luckett and Max Duppy, I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Crow Green.